Excited to
Morning,
see
Chris.
you in this crazy adventure that you're about to take on. I'd
Yeah.
love to have you share a little bit about your background and anything that you want to share with our FITTEAM family.
Thank you for everything that you guys have been doing, first off, and thanks for hopping on the Zoom call with me. No, I mean, as far as, I guess, background, you mean as my personal background, or
Where you grew up, just give us like, your family.
okay, yeah. So I'm one of 6 kids. I grew up South Florida native. Actually, both of my parents are South Florida natives, which is super rare to hear. One of 6 kids. I always was active growing up. Played all sorts of sports, football. My dad was always my coach, football, softball, pretty much any sport you can think of, I was playing it. Always loved competing. And then of course, when you get older in life, you kind of, there's not as many opportunities to get in. Like, yeah, there's marathons and there's runs, which I've done those too and love them, but I feel like it's not as like when you're a kid and you're always able to be competitive. But then in my early adult life, I was an ocean rescue lifeguard for Deerfield Beach for 8 years. I'm still currently doing that as like will call. That job is the best, just as far as like staying active and always being fit, because it's part of the job. Like you always have to swim, you're always running, you're always paddling. So I feel like that was like a huge driver for me to just always stay in shape and always be really physically fit. And then the people you're working with too, they're some of the best athletes. Like they're so good. They're such watermen from paddling to swimming. So it kind of always forces you or motivates you to kind of always be in shape.
Awesome.
Yeah.
You've been active basically your whole life. When did you start working out? Like more in the gym, exercise?
Start working out. Yeah. So I had always just done basically like running. I loved running. Like I'm such a cardio junkie. And then when I started working on Deerfield Beach, that's when I started like incorporating more swimming, paddling, soft sand beach runs, which was like huge to build like your strength as a runner. But I didn't start actually like working out and going to a gym because I had always wanted to like get into strength training and doing more weights, but I was like that type of person in the gym that would go and would maybe pick up 2 weights and like didn't feel confident in like kind of knowing how many sets to do, how many reps to do. So I would just leave. So I feel like once I found F45, which was like a year ago, and April was a year ago, and a friend was telling me like, I think you would really like it. And I loved it. I just liked that it's structured and it's set up that you go in, they have it. You don't have to think, you don't have to worry about how many sets am I going to do here? Like it's on the screen and it's so straightforward. So I started going there in April a year ago. So that was like really the first time. That was the first time I ever even, I think, heard of a burpee or even did a burpee, saw a burpee. Like I had never really, just because I wasn't in that kind of like gym scenario. I had done a few like CrossFit classes here and there before that, but I was never enrolled in a membership or anything. Like F45 was like my first membership. Yeah. And I love it. It's great because I feel like they do a lot of like endurance driven stuff where you have your cardio days, which I love. And then the weight isn't so much pressure to lift heavy weight. Like you can still have a lot. It's more like endurance and resist. I love their structure of their workout. But yeah, that was about a year ago that I started going there.
That was the first time you did burpees. That's awesome. So
yeah.
When did you decide to go for the Guinness record?
Let's see. The day that I had it in my mind that I was going to go for it, where I said, maybe I could go for this record, I applied right then and there that very day. Because I feel like once I have something on my mind, I just need to like act on it and go for it. But the way that what even got me to even thinking that was something that I would attempt or go for was I did the 75 hard challenge, which is kind of like a lot of people know about it. It's basically like a program you follow for 75 days. It has all these different rules. And it was during that time I had like something pop up on my Instagram. I can't even remember where I saw it, but it was saying, if you can do burpees in this amount of time, then you're this level of fit. If you can do it in this amount of time, basically a fit test based on burpees. So I was like, oh, cool. And each week of the 75 hard challenge, I was like, I want to give myself like my own personal challenge outside of like what the rules are for hard 75, or 75 hard. And then, so I was like, every day I'm going to do 100 burpees. And then at the end of the week, I want to see how many burpees I can do or how long it takes me to do those 100 burpees. And I was like, I'd be stoked if I get it under 10 minutes. Cause that was like super fit as far as like the fit test went on like the little thing that I saw. So then I did it and I did them in 6 minutes and I felt like fired up. I felt like I could keep going. Like I really wasn't tired. And I was like, man, maybe I'm better than at these burpees than I think I am or thought I was. So then after that, I was like, it kind of like built my confidence. So I was like, let me see what if there's a record for burpees. And I looked it up and I was like 8:29 for the hour. I think it was like 34 for the 8 hour. And then for the 12, it's like 56, which right away I was like, shit, that's a lot of burpees. I don't know if that's a lot, but I feel like my endurance is already there as far as like I mentioned before, I've always been like really cardio driven. So like I have a really strong endurance. It was just like I felt at that time, which I still feel like it's just getting really comfortable being uncomfortable. And that's what I really love about the burpee is it tests like your physical fitness, but also your mental, because you feel so uncomfortable, like, and it's hitting every muscle. So like it challenges your strength and your mental. And I really liked that about it. So then once I decided I was going to do it, I applied for Guinness. Takes a pretty long time to hear back. So I really didn't want to start, like I was still maintaining like being fit, going to the gym every day, in between rest periods at the gym, like for F45, if you know how it's set up, where they have like 20 seconds rest, a minute rest. There was no rest period for me. I just did burpees in between everything, was like just to keep my endurance up. But I didn't want to like really structure a training plan until I heard back from them, because I didn't want to like overly train and burn myself out. And I also didn't want to give myself not enough time and not be prepared. So I feel like from the time I heard back until now, that's kind of how I landed on the date as well. Because I was like looking at dates that had like significant meaning to me, but also gave me enough time to where I felt like confident and prepared.
Right. So anyone that missed it, what are the 3 world records you're gonna attempt?
Yeah, so the first one is most burpees in 1 hour, and these are chest to ground burpees, which that was another thing that when I applied for it and I saw chest to ground, I just figured that the one that I was doing at F45 or just that I learned was that burpee, until I started looking at videos of like past record holders, and I was like, all right, wait a minute, this is a whole different. So and at that point I had already put my application in, so I was already like committed to it. So for this one, chest to ground, you actually have to go down and your arms have to go completely out and then completely back in up. You have to be in vertical position. You can't be bent over. Feet have to be obviously off the ground. And that's 1. So each time your arms have to go out. So the first one is most burpees in 1 hour. And the current record is 829. And then the second record is most burpees in 8 hours. And I believe that's 3,400. And then the last one is most burpees in 12 hours, and that is 5,600.
Wow.
So I thought of the one in between. I already knew, I was like the 1 hour, I was like, I for sure want to go for that. But just because I was mentioning before, I feel like my endurance is really good. And I was like, I really want to put myself through more of a mental test. I know just that hour is going to be like, I feel like for that, I already kind of not know what to expect because I've never done it, but I feel like I've been in situations where it's an hour long and you're pushing yourself to the fullest you can for an hour, which, yeah, this is different, but I feel like I kind of can really get mentally close to what that's going to feel like physically and mentally. Whereas like something like 12 hours is like a really long feat. Like you don't even know what you're going to feel like at 6 hours, what you're going to feel at this hours. And I feel like that's where like any physical preparation you did, it's kind of out the door at that point. Yeah, you have to be, of course, like conditioned for this and not just going, oh, I'm going to go do 12 hours. But I feel like mental is like everything. And I'm always putting more focus. I put a lot of focus on physical and being trained and prepared. But the amount of mental work I do, I feel like exceeds anything that I'm doing physically. And I feel like that's super important. So yeah, those are the 3 records, 1, 8, and 12. Yep.
The mental is, as most people do endurance thing, that do
Yeah.
endurance training. So it's everything. That's
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah. And it also helps too when you have, because I'm the type of person that like, yeah, I want to compete and do anything at my best for my own personal game. But at the same time, like if there's people cheering me on, or I people know invested in me and time and are there to support me, like I'm going to give 1,000 more percent than I would. And it's just something to where like even when I'm doing my training and I'm like, wow, like I'm stoked on that time that I did for how many I got in there. I just know it's such a different scenario when you're in, and same thing when you're running a marathon, or your best pace might be 7 minutes and you're so happy with that. But when you're actually in that scenario and there's people cheering you on, you're working off that adrenaline, you'll get it in 6:45 when you're like, wow, I didn't think that was possible. So like
Right.
there really is something that's so powerful about people that are supporting you, believing in you. And I feel like such a strong team, like with you, with FITTEAM, with everyone at F45, with my family, with my friends, that's like been a huge driver. And I just feel like wanting to just do the best I can. Yeah,
Awesome. Great stuff. And I know you have another driving force behind you. It's a charity that you decided. Tell us a little bit about that.
absolutely. Yeah. So this charity, wow. I feel like the charity, just doing something like this would of course be such a huge accomplishment and I would be so proud of myself. But I feel like the fact that I have a charity, and let alone this charity connected to it, like just means like so much to me. Look, I'm getting like worked up even talking about it, as if I feel like I know this girl, because I feel like I connected with her on such a personal level. And it's the girl Claire, her name's Claire, and she started Claire's Place, which is a nonprofit for cystic fibrosis. It actually funds and helps families that are going through any medical treatments they need, any surgeries they need. So this girl actually started this at 13 years old, and her whole life she's battling cystic fibrosis. From the time she was born, she kept getting, your life expectancy is this, your life expectancy is this, and she's kept outliving those life expectancies. But the biggest inspiration and the biggest like empowering thing of this girl is like, so she became somewhat of like a social media like celebrity, like not celebrity, but like influencer, I guess you would say. She started her own YouTube channel. Like I mentioned, she started this foundation on her own at 13, which that alone just tells you the type of character and person that she was. So, and all these videos that you can see, that's where you like, I feel like I've got to know her on such a personal level just watching her videos, where you're like, not once, if somebody's her whole life, like I mentioned, just being given different milestones that she might not make it to. You never see this girl where she's negative, where she's wanting a pity party, where she's wanting anything. She doesn't even want to be looked at that she's sick. She wants to be like, what can I do that makes the biggest impact with my time that I do have? I don't want to look at, I might not have tomorrow. I want to look at what did I do today that made a difference in someone else's life tomorrow. So I hadn't had a charity in mind once I applied, and I on there they asked like, do you want a charity to do alongside it? And I knew right away, like, yeah, absolutely. But I didn't really have one. And then I was like, you know what? My best friend, Rachel, she was diagnosed with breast cancer in the beginning of this year. And she's just been same thing, such an inspiration to me. She's been so resilient and just so empowering. And like, she really hasn't taken her diagnosis and expected anything from anyone. She's very like level-headed and strong-willed on like what she wants to do with her treatment, how she wants to take control of her health. And so I was like, you know what? I can't think of any other better person to honor during this record than her. And because she's going through such a battle on her own right now. And like, that's what I'm going to be doing that day, is straight on battling with mental, with physical fatigue, all of that. So I really wanted her to pick this charity. So I ran it by her. Of course, she was so like grateful and was like, wow, like, thank you for even offering that. She's like, I'm going to do a little research into what charity resonates with me. So I had expected her to maybe choose like a breast cancer one or holistic breast cancer one. And then she said, hey, I want to run something by you. She's like, it's not breast cancer, but it's for this girl, Claire. And, I know I can't particularly relate to her disease, but I can relate to her personality and her willpower and everything that she believes in and just her overall being. So I was like, great. I was like, honestly, it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be breast cancer as long as it's one that you feel is important to you. And that's to me what mattered. I was like, I just want it to resonate with her. But then when she sent me it and I got to know this girl and I was like, wow, watching her videos, and I was already in, like, within 15 minutes of watching her documentary, I was like, this girl's incredible. And I was so happy that that was the one that she had sent and said, this is the one that I want to be the charity. So 15 minutes in, I was like, paused the documentary because I knew I wanted to just get that charity out there because I wanted to start, like, I hadn't even announced yet that I was even going for this record to like I mean, my family knew, but like I hadn't really put it out there. So I wanted to have like announce it saying like, I'm doing this for this. So when I was 15 minutes, and I had been asking my friend that whole week, like, hey, you know, not to rush you, but like, do you have a charity? Like, I'd really like to start like kind of putting it out there. So then that's why 15 minutes in and I was already hooked. I was like, let me go on this page, start my charity. So I went on her foundation page, started it up, did a little backstory bio of my friend Rachel, why I was doing this record. And then I go back and I repost or start the documentary back up. And then it gets to the end, and the whole time you're like, wow, like, you know, she needs this surgery. And I got to share this documentary too with you, anyone that wants to see it. It's incredible. So I'm going through it, and then it gets to the end of it, and like I mentioned before to you, I said dates are very significant to me. Like if I'm going to do something, it's got to be for something bigger than myself, for someone, but then a date like to kind of tie it in. And this date to me was important because someone who's very close to me, was like a brother growing up. He died way too young. This was 9 years ago. And he's just anything I've ever done in my life, like whether it was a competition, whether it was anything I've ever done, I feel like I've always had him in my mind as like something that pushes me. Sorry, I'm getting so emotional. That pushes me more, or just it's something I just feel like he's always with me. And his favorite number was 11. So that, like right here, 1111, that's just always like a number that resonated with me. So I was like, you know what? 9-2, that equals 11. And actually that was my friend Rachel, who's the one who has breast cancer. Cause I said, I really want to pick a date. And she knows how dates are to me. I said, but I want to pick one that like resonated, and it's not Joey's birthday, and it's not 11/11. I can't wait till November. She's like, well, why don't you do 9-2? She's like, 9 + 2 = 11. And I was like, perfect. I was like, and then I text all my family, and that weekend was open for everyone. So I said, it's 9-2. So now flash forward. This was, I had the date 9-2 when I applied for the record. So now flash forward, I'm watching the end 15 minutes of this documentary, and it gets to the point where it was so unexpected too, that it was like, unfortunately, Claire has the surgery, and a week later she passes away. And it just said, she passes away on September 2nd. And that to me, I was like, even just telling it too, I feel like I get the chills, because that right there, I started crying right when I saw that. I was like, wow, like what better sign is there to say, like, this is the reason you're doing it for. And it has so much significance to you as far as like what this girl meant to so many people. The date, everything just felt like it just all came together, and it just felt so right. And I feel like from there, it got me so much even more like, yeah, I was excited to do this record, but I was also super nervous because I was like, I don't know what to expect as far as my body and where I'm going to be at mentally. I know I can do as much preparation, but I feel like seeing that date and everything kind of coming full circle, I was like fired up, and was like, you know what? I'm not doing this for me anymore. Like, yeah, that's personal accomplishment's going to be great, and I'm going to be so proud of myself. But like, there's so many other bigger reasons to why I'm doing this. And cystic fibrosis, with it being a lung disease, like I want it to be like, yeah, you know what, she still really did accomplish such great things in her life, or anyone, not just Claire, anyone with any disease. Like, you don't have to be doing something physical, you know, or feel like that you're less of because you can't use your physical. Like, you can still make such a difference or inspire people with your words, with your just how you treat people. And I feel like she did that. And I feel like for me to be able to use my body and my lungs that I'm like, it just shows you too, like humbles you, like, wow, how grateful am I that I'm able to do this, that I'm even able to ask my body to do 12 hours of physical endurance. You know, when some people, I don't even get that. Their whole day is them on a oxygen tank, you know, but someone like her, it didn't matter to her. She still got so much accomplished, more accomplished in her 21 years of life than a lot of people their whole entire life. So I guess that's kind of what the charity means to me. It means a lot. Yeah.
Their story is amazing, and
Yeah.
inspiration. You're an inspiration. How can people that want to connect with you, maybe your Instagram or anything else you want to share?
Yeah. My Instagram is at Britteny Cali, and I spell my name Britteny. My last name is Cali. And Instagram's great. I don't have any of those TikToks or any other thing. So Instagram's perfect. If you wanted to donate to the charity, that's also, there's a link in my bio on my Instagram that kind of tells a little backstory too about my friend Rachel, and just a little more, I guess, on how I came about wanting to do this. But yeah, I guess that would be the best way to connect with me.
Any last words?
No, I guess just thank you, you know, for allowing me to even kind of share more of the backstory and of Claire's story. So I really appreciate that. Anyone that wants to come out, I thank you in advance. Anyone who's even supported me up until now and encouraged me, like, I feel like there's so, like, people even just saying like, hey, you're doing such a good job. Like, they think they're just like small words, but they really do, like, and it's not just to me, I'm just saying people in general, like, words of affirmation and positive words have such a huge impact that it's just like, so anyone that's encouraged me thus far, like, I'm so grateful for it, because I feel like for every little person that's like, we can't wait to cheer you on and we're going to see you then, like, I'm just, that's one other person to like have in my mind, like, all right, I can't let that person down, or I can't. So yeah, I guess just thank you to anyone who's been super supportive or encouraging to me.
Well, thank you for letting us be a part of this. This is absolutely amazing.
No, thank you, Chris, honestly.
Thank you.